saya ng iyong pagtuturo. Minsa'y nakakatakot pag mainit ang ulo. Ngunit kahit ano pa ang ugali mo, basta't kami tiyak na natututo. O guru ko, o guru ko, ang iyong tungkulin ay di gawang biro. Ngunit ako'y bilib sa'yo, dahil sa'yo buoti ko'y tumatalino. Minsan sa klase mo ako'y nababagot, dahil kay daming sermon ang inaabot. Ngunit nalaman ko kaya pala ganon, ika'y pangalawang magulang ko. O guru ko, o guru ko.
Good afternoon to all of our listeners here at DWDD Katropa Radio. You are listening to the Voice of the Teachers, your favorite Sunday afternoon habit, broadcasting live from the heart of Cubao, Quezon City, here at the AFP Camp Aguinaldo. Magandang hapon, katropang Sir Paul.
Okay, good afternoon din Dan, Katropang Bobby. It's nice to be in a different place sa ating studio. First time to be in this seat, by the way.
Yeah, after being the floor director of our show since this January, and you have done a very, very wonderful job acting as our floor director. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I want to do it talaga seriously. And, it's a nice experience, and maybe it will improve my craft and skills sa gantong bagay. Because who knows, maybe in the future, baka pumunta tayo sa gantong klaseng activity pa in the future.
That's correct. And our station manager has very big plans for our shows here at DWDD Katropa Radio, and we are going to be tying up also with another, hopefully, TV station, and we might be invited as guests as well.
Yeah, just like what I'm talking about. Ano, kailangan na nating this is an opportunity for us to hone our skills, di ba?
Yes, that's correct. Now, before we proceed with our show this afternoon, I would like to greet the newly installed officers of the Escudo Lodge number 371, si Worshipful Master Kenneth John Gregorio, si Senior Warden Ray Arvin, and then si Ray Arvin Serrano, si Junior Warden Jean Paulo Guadalupe. Congratulations, we had our installation yesterday, kaya medyo hindi naman kulang sa tulog, but I had a very, very fun-filled evening last night. We would also like to thank the fine craftsmen, yung mga shirts namin, especially to Kuyang Luke Gicane, yung artista, yung model. It was the one who also provided us with our yung pants namin. Thank you very much, Kuyang Luke. I would also like to greet all of my former classmates and schoolmates. We had our alumni homecoming yesterday, PJC High School in Pagadian City. And eto pa nga, until right now, they're still chatting, they're still talking about what happened yesterday, and marami pa silang mga plano. I'm just very sorry I wasn't able to make it to the alumni homecoming. So I'd like to greet my classmates, yung pinaka-playboy namin na si Dondon Sawal, si Yasmin Salonga, si classmate ko rin since elementary, si Joanne Perez. She's already, kalimutan ko yung family name niya ngayon, but she used to be Joanne Perez. And to all of our classmates, thank you. I'm very, very sorry I wasn't able to join you, but hopefully in the future I'll be able to join you. So this afternoon we have a full afternoon. We have two segments. Of course, your segment, which is on continuing education, and we will continue discussing our talk about the thesis, writing, and also buhay ng isang master's student.
Okay.
It's wrong to say masteral. So it's master's student. And we also will be having another segment which is going to tackle about non-academic tutorials. So,
for the moment muna, yung ating mga updates. No?
Yes.
So I would like to read to you mga updates coming from DepEd and CHED. Once again, DepEd and CHED is reminding schools never to invite politicians sa mga graduation ceremonies. Dapat lang po, dapat lang. And then DepEd is still reviewing its policy of not admitting unvaccinated pupils. The proposed policy is due to the increased cases of measles that has recently hit the country. DepEd is organized a task force or has a task force that will receive an additional 50 million pesos as funding for honoraria ng mga teachers who will serve dito sa coming na elections. CHED Chairperson Dr. De Vera III reminded all government scholars, okay, I think this one became quite the talk of the town. He is reminding all government scholars to focus on finishing their respective degrees instead of participating in anti-government demonstrations. And President Duterte has just signed an act. This is called the Special Protection of Children in Situations of Armed Conflict Act, Republic Act number 11188. The law aims to protect children in armed conflict by providing them with rehabilitative services such as a continuing education. And then last is the Cancer Phenome Biobanking System and Biomonitoring Program located at PGH was launched last February 18. Ang purpose ng program nito is to help higher education institutions, especially medical schools and science and technology institutions, to search for cures to combat many types of cancers. So that was our updates from DepEd and CHED. Katropang Bobby.
Yes, I'm watching the monitor right now. We are actually hosting a watch party sa Facebook. Okay. And I would also like to greet yung mga kababayan ko, si Gemma Bilingatong, si Ding Dong Dablo. Ding Dong Dablo, I think right now is out of the country. I think he's teaching English in one of the ASEAN countries right now. Also, of course, yung classmate ko since elementary until high school, si Noria Mamaton, a good friend of mine. I'm also happy to see mga kaibigan ko, si Virgil Casquejo. Dito din yung kaibigan kong from college, si Joey Florendo, Ate Sinay. And also, a good cousin of mine, first cousin ko, si Ate Paz Ginto. Hello, Ate Paz. Okay, so hindi na tayo magpaligoy-ligoy. We will now go to our first segment, which is on continuing education.
So our guest this afternoon for this part on continuing education is a true-blooded LaSallian. Okay, I'm happy always to mention that kasi my brother studied in LaSalle. And our guest today served also as an assistant professor in LaSalle for some time, from 2001 to 2008. And then after that, he went to Assumption College, where he was associate professor from 2008 to 2012, and then he became consultant of the Philippine Health, and he also became lecturer. Okay, so this one is, I am curious about this, lecturer of business administration at Raffles College of Higher Education in Singapore. So right now he is the program head of Centro Escolar Las Piñas on non-science programs. But occasionally you are a guest lecturer din sa Chiang Kai-shek College. Okay? Okay, so ang ating guest for today is Dr. Eric Halcon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sir Paul, thank you so much for inviting me. And to everyone at DWDD, I'm very much honored to be your guest this Sunday. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
DWDD.
Okay,
DWDD.
Yes. So Eric, I was scrolling through your profile.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
I was actually preparing a set of questions about stat. Okay, pero I became more curious do sa latest research na na-publish mo.
Yes.
Okay, so let me just read to you the title of Dr. Halcon's paper.
Oh my.
Life Expectancy of Filipinos Among Southeast Asian Nations, an analysis in the context of health economics and development.
Yes,
this is published in the Institutional Research Inquest of the Journal of Chiang Kai-shek College, April 2018.
Yes, 2018.
Okay, what was this all about, this research?
In 2015 to 2016, I was actually a faculty member of Far Eastern University. They actually gave me a task to produce a research output given one school year. So I was quite interested in health economics at that time because my mom was going through a health crisis at that time. So that's where I drew the inspiration. I wrote a paper about life expectancy of Filipinos. So I basically benchmarked Philippine data against our Southeast Asian neighbors. So it was quite interesting actually when the results were generated. But the publication process, it was quite long and tedious. It took me 3 years actually to find a journal willing to host. I mean, in the academy, it's really like that. It takes a long time for the results to come out. So by the time it sees the light of day, sometimes the data is quite old already.
So yung data mo was from what year?
If I'm not mistaken, I used 2014 data.
Okay, so medyo matagal na nga yan.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
You know, so the reason why para bang nag-brighten yung aking mata when I saw that is because ito rin kasi ang isa sa mga, hindi ko naman research interest Kasi hindi, I no longer do not do that actual research thing. But para bang at the back of my mind, ito yung mga bagay that I'm always constantly alert.
Yes.
Kasi ang life expectancy is a measure of quality of life.
Yes, quality of life is one of those factors that that is captured by life expectancy.
Okay, ito let's more on that. Paano ba kinukuha ng institutions ang life expectancy? Paano siya kino-compute?
Okay. There are several determinants of life expectancy. I think one of them is gender. Gender is one of those determinants. Quality of life, access to healthcare. That's one.
Work.
And work, career. There you also have diet, of course. But to my surprise, what do you call this? Filipinos, this is the nice thing about the research. Filipinos nowadays are experiencing an increase in life expectancy.
That's
so,
good.
What do you call this? So, if you have offsprings or children, you can expect them in the general case that they will outlive their parents. So that is one thing that is interesting about the study. But to my surprise, Filipinos in the 1960s, they lived longer compared to their Asian counterparts.
Okay,
so
comparatively, Asian counterparts?
Yes, comparatively. So I used Southeast Asia as a what do you call this? A point of comparison. So back then, Filipinos would live longer than Indonesians.
Okay, let's put in the numbers. What's the life expectancy of a male?
Of a male nowadays, if I'm not mistaken, when the data was published, I think 71.
Okay, male.
Yes,
for women?
For women, I think on the average, they outlive their male counterparts by a year or two. So 72 or 73. So it is safe to say that females tend to outlive males in general.
Going back dun sa male life expectancy ng male.
Yes.
Okay, this is something to do na rin with stock, by the way. Okay, yung by average ng mga regions?
Average of the regions, and I used regression analysis, correlation analysis.
So may mga highs and lows doon sa mga regions.
Yes,
What's the lowest life expectancy that can you remember?
If I remember correctly, around 49 to 51.
Wow,
yes.
That's pretty low. What region?
If I'm not mistaken,
It's ARM. Probably it's ARM region.
What I use is national data.
Okay.
So it's not broken down into regional data. Yeah,
Okay.
national data.
Okay.
But there is a Southeast Asian country that posted around life expectancy of 49 to 51 years old. So, surprisingly, that's very
You know
low.
what? That's why I cannot let this pass nung nakita ko yung kanyang papel because that's the topic of serious significance sa atin. You can just imagine a life expectancy ng lalaki na 49 to 51 years old. I mean, come on, ang ating grandfathers live longer than that. So you have something like a child who will be born, but he will not live to see his grandparents kapag you are born in that kind of environment.
Yes,
and by
that's
the way, kasi nga I'm a bit familiar na rin dyan, ang mababa ang life expectancy sa regions natin are ARM region. At the ARMs din, the Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao. And one thing pa, hindi lang sila sa life expectancy mababa sa quality of life. Pag hinanap mo yung kanilang literacy rate, sila din na mababa.
That's true.
Yung number of nurses per 1,000 persons, number of doctors, ang lahat ng numbers pertaining to quality of life in that region is really very low.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, okay, go ahead.
May tatanong lang ako.
Yes, sir.
Nabanggit din ba sa research mo, anong mga factors kung bakit yung male ay mas mas mababa yung kanilang life
Oh,
expectancy?
that's quite interesting. Actually, we can only assume reasons at this very point in time, because one practical assumption that I can think of is that we as Filipinos or Filipino males, we are groomed to become the providers of the family. So we are the ones who are working day and night to provide or bring food and provide shelter to our children. So what do you call this? We are trained out there to face real life.
And prone din sa
Yes,
risk.
and be more exposed to the risk factors. And if I may term it correctly, occupational hazard. So
Doc, medyo merong gender bias yung sinabi mo kanina.
yes, I know some ladies might not. The realization may not sink in well, but my apologies.
When you said men or the males are usually the ones who are exposed to the real world, but you will also notice that even females, the mothers,
Yes.
face even very very stressful world.
Yes, that's
even
true.
sa bahay lang. Anyway, I think it's also because aside from the fact na meron ng mga risk factors, yung occupational hazards which was mentioned, karamihan sa mga drivers, for example, are males. Karamihan sa mga construction workers are also males.
Yes.
And then aside from that one, we have to consider, we also have to remember that many of the vices are used, most of the men have vices which
Yes.
affect their health. So that's also one of the these are also some of the factors that affect the life expectancy of males. And
okay.
yung drinking, yung fatty food,
Yes, lifestyle
so,
choices.
lifestyle.
Yes.
But if I may add, ang feeling ko lang is yung longevity, the fact that they live longer women, it's probably part of the sex related trait eh. Kasi
Yes, biological endowments,
it's,
yes.
it's probably part of biological trait na rin eh. Kasi ito namang longevity ng women is true for all nations eh.
Okay.
That's
Hindi
true.
lang sa Pilipinas.
That's true.
Okay, by the way, still with life expectancy, because I'm telling you, you will learn a lot from this eh. Yung ating lang life expectancy, that's the expected length of life ng isang bata na halimbawa ay born today.
Yes, on the average.
On average.
Yes.
Pero meron tayong life expectancy calculator eh. So, nung in-access ko yun, and then inilagay ko kailan, when I was born, pero on life expectancy para na sa akin is hindi na
Yes,
69
that's
eh.
true.
Mataas na siya.
Yes, that's true. It's actually time sensitive. The year that you were born, the era in which you are born also plays a factor to determine the life expectancy.
That could be also because of the environment, the
Yes.
quality of the air,
Yes.
and the food that
food.
became popular during that particular time.
Yes.
Yung parents ko kasi, my grandparents died. My grandfather died before I was born. My grandmother was in a coma when I was born. Not if I was not. It may have been a couple of years after I was born, but I had two uncles who died in their 40s
Okay.
because of heart failure. So, yung sinasabi na nga natin ng quality of life and then the stress of life also. So, nagmamatter din yun. And then you will also notice that yung food din, this time around, you will notice that we are more conscious about what we eat. Many
true.
people are now advocating for vegetarianism. There are now more people who are now avoiding rice because eto daw,
Yeah.
it will develop diabetes complications, and my father also died because of diabetes complications
Talaga?
from diabetes. So, yun, yung lifestyle changes nangyayari na natin now. I think these also play
Yes.
factors.
And Teacher Bob, I think we must correct people kasi ang pangkaraniwan tao, meron silang pangunawa na people in the past live longer. Siguro it's something like this. Siguro they were reading a Bible passage and they heard that Noah was something like 3,000 years old. But they didn't know na iba naman ang calendar nila.
Yes,
That's why they
yes.
are given that age. But definitely it's not true that the people in the past live longer. And then ito pa, in relation na rin sa stat.
Yes, sir.
And then, pag may kausap kang gano'n, sasabihin niya, bakit ang lolo ko? Inabot siya ng 100 years.
Yes,
So
yes.
how would you face
Okay.
that person?
In real life, what do you call this? a particular variable is not just influenced by a single variable. For example, in the field of health science, what are the causes of lung cancer? Usually, it's smoking. So how would you explain the case of a non-smoker who eventually developed lung cancer? So there could be other variables that may have influenced the occurrence of, let's say, lung cancer.
Okay, in addition na rin, isa na rin sa correction, again, related sa stat, ito yung kasi average, di ba? Let's say, for example, 71 years old life expectancy na Filipino. That's the average. Okay, so average yan. Meron niyang outliers.
There are outliers, yes.
So that's the typical age. So, ang dapat siguro sagot doon yung father mo, grandfather mo, he's not the typical person of his generation.
Well, my grandfather, if I'm not mistaken, he died around at 80 plus already.
So, ang feeling ko that is not the typical person of his generation. Kumbaga, the typical person of his generation is already dead.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
And he passed away 1994, if I'm not mistaken, or 1988, if I'm not
okay.
I remember right. Yes.
Okay, so we will go on na. Kasi slowly we are going na sa talagang topic natin. It's about correlation analysis.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And by the way nga pala, stat din at teacher. So lahat tayo dito stat.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay. So what is the correlation analysis all about?
Okay, correlation is actually a measure of association. So it's just well, there are things that go together, that tend to go together, but not necessarily causes each other or the other way around. For example, in psychology, a person who has anxiety may also suffer from depression, because I think in the medical field they call this comorbidities. A person with diabetes may also have hypertension. They go together. They are what you call comorbidities nga in the field of health science, but not necessarily one causes the other. Correlation is actually a mathematic or statistical technique, rather. It's a statistical technique to see the degree of association between two variables.
Okay, di ba usually ang ideally ang una nating ginagawa diyan yung scatter plot muna?
Yes, that's the scatter plot.
Meron ba diyang minimum number of data points so that you can effectively interpret yung scatter plot?
Okay. Well, as far as I can remember, there is no recommended minimum number of points, as long as you capture the overall trend or pattern of the data for you to say that there is indeed a behavior that exists between the two variables. For example, family size and income, or family size and monthly expenditures. For what do you call this? The more members there are in the family, technically you need more income. So you will see an upward trend. If you take a survey of so many people in a particular area, you will see that there will be an upward trend. The bigger the family size, the bigger the family income that's needed to cover expenditures.
Okay, so when we do correlation analysis, di ba, ang mangyayari niyan ang ating goal ultimately is to produce a kind of number.
Yes, that's true.
Maybe number or numbers, and then we shall interpret that.
Yes.
Okay, so halimbawa sa regression or coefficient analysis involving continuous variables.
Yes.
Dalawang continuous variables. What coefficient number ba are we looking for that?
Okay. For correlation, the range of, well, I'm talking of what do you call this? Pearson's R, or Pearson's correlation coefficient, which is the most commonly used technique in both undergraduate and graduate classes. The value for the Pearson correlation ranges from -1 to +1, inclusive. So it is defined in that interval, close interval, -1 to +1. If it's -1, there is a perfect negative correlation between the two variables. But if it's +1, there's a perfect positive correlation. But if it's around 0, there is no discernible relationship. In actual practice, it is very difficult to get a perfect correlation of -1 and +1, because in real life, there's no such thing as a perfect relationship.
Correct.
Or perfect measurement or perfect research. There are certain limitations to everything.
Sakit nun? There's no perfect relationship.
It's something like this, no? Usually kapag correlation ng mga physical things. Let's say physics kinds of things. Let's say temperature, pressure, speed, etc. You could expect a value of R na close to 1.
Because it's nature.
Pero when we are talking na about the concerns of social science research, economics, for example, ang field mo. Okay, meron bang number dyan, yung value ng absolute value ng R, meron bang number dyan na pag ganito ang number na significant niya for social science?
Okay, well, there could... Okay, when you get the correlation coefficient, you will get a value that is ranging from -1 to +1. But it doesn't mean that that correlation is significant. For example, you get a value that is 0.9, so that's strong positive correlation between X and Y, let's say. But it does not necessarily mean that that correlation is significant. That's why you have to test for significance. That's the classic way of doing it in undergraduate and graduate stat. You have to test that value for significance using hypothesis testing procedures.
Question and sir.
Yes,
since halimbawa sabi nyo nga kanina na +1 yung perfect.
Perfect association.
Positive correlation. Paano kung positive 0.1 or 0.2? Paano natin yan dinidescribe?
Usually, you just say that there is a low positive correlation between the variables X and Y. So,
but would that be accepted as may significant?
No, not necessarily.
Wala na talaga.
It may be low but also significant.
Okay.
You know what? That's something na even though I wrote a textbook for stat, hindi naman ako purist stat, hindi naman yan na academic learning. But that is something na that our listeners maybe is new. Pagkatapos mong ma-produce yung R, it does not stop there. Significant ba yun? That's another test.
Yes, that's true. Yes, there is. You have the Z test, the T test. Well, those are the classic ones used in statistics. You also have the F test. But what do you call this? If you use a statistical software package, let's say SPSS, which is
IBM.
very common, automatically when you run the correlation coefficient, it will automatically flag down significant correlation. So you will see stars already. So when you see the star, that means that this correlation is significant. So that's one beauty of using a statistical software, because when I took undergrad stat, I still have to do it manually.
Using Excel?
No, not even, sir. We use the tables. We have a formula sheet, index cards, and then let's say, this is the test, this is the exam. You have to figure out, will it use the Z distribution, the T distribution, or the chi-square distribution? So you have to be very critical when answering an exam. Unlike now, when you run the software, everything is there. It's just a matter of putting it into words, actually.
Well, since you mentioned about softwares being used in statistics, do you think that that is also going to further discourage students from learning statistics? Dahil meron ng software na magagamit na ilalagay mo lang dyan yung mga factors and then everything else is going to be computed.
Well, if I may share, I think that's a trend nowadays that a statistics class will carry a laboratory component to it. But to me, I still think, I'm I'm quite divided actually. I do it manually first on the board if I'm teaching a class in statistics. I do it manually on the board, and then I ask them to bring out their laptops and, hey, let's do this by Excel or by software. And then they will appreciate, to me, I notice that my students, they appreciate things better when they know how to do it manually, the painful way of doing it manually. And then eventually, that problem that takes 10 minutes to solve only takes 2 minutes by software. So
at saka actually meron din ako na experience diyan na umaabot ng 2 minutes lang yung paglabas ng data, pero ang matagal yung pag-analyze kasi hindi naman nilalabas ng software yung analysis. It's
true.
Still yung researcher pa rin.
Yes, you have to put things into perspective.
Correct.
You know what? Right now, I'm teaching itong mathematics in the modern world. That's a GE subject. By the way, I have a book there. I wrote a book there. At ang next topic namin, ang pinili ko yung the tools of stat. So actually, ang nangyari niyan, parang ni-review ko yung stat. Actually, ang mga high school may stat From actually hanggang ano yan hanggang random variable, hanggang probability distribution. Probability distribution ng natural. So So yun, one chapter, dun lang. And then ang plano ko nga is, of course, I cannot go into the details of
That's
the
true.
ano eh.
That's true.
Doon ako diretso papasok possibly yung use ng software and then yung interpretation.
Yes, sir.
Now, since ang ating audience dito usual, ang karamihan ay mga teachers na, okay,
Yes.
syempre yung linear regression, pang ano na yun eh, pang undergrad lang yun eh. Okay?
Yes,
So
sir.
I will choose some regression analysis. Paano? Exponential regression,
Exponential regression.
logistic, ano ba ito? Logarithmic or logistic?
Logistic regression,
Okay,
if I
logistic,
remember.
I think that's the correct way to pronounce it. Logistic regression,
regression.
quadratic, at meron pa itong sinusoidal. Okay, anyone from both of you, ano bang example natin sa mga continuous variables
Continuous
that
variables.
where we can use the exponential regression?
Oh, exponential. Well, the first thing that if I remember correctly, how to run an exponential regression, you create a scatter plot first.
That's right, the scatter
to
plot.
see if there is indeed an exponential
Increase or decay?
increase or decrease between two variables. A good example would be in science, bacterial growth, exponential growth. They are modeled using the exponential exponential distribution or exponential relationship.
Okay.
You all for exponential decay, you also have the learning curve in production management, and then you also have radioactive decay, if I remember well. So that's one. You have to get enough literature or support that it is indeed going to be exponential.
Okay, one example na probably which will ring a bell for people who are interested in economics ay yung presyo ng mga perishable goods, halimbawa yung mga gulay. Okay, kung fresh yan, okay, they're fresh and in demand, it will increase. But way past a certain time, ano na yan eh, kumbaga, hindi na yan sariwa.
That's
And
no
then,
longer fresh.
okay, babagsak na yung presyo niyan, and then, masabi lang maibenta na, kahit kumbaga, kung magkano mo ang gusto mong presyo,
Surplus
sa'yo na
na
yan.
dating
No?
ka.
Okay, so that's one example of
Yes,
exponential
that's
growth. Exponential regression, where we can use exponential regression.
That's true.
Oh, okay. Logarithmic or logistic regression. Okay, so what variables can you think of where we can use this? Ganito ha, I will sketch it sa ere ha. Ganito kasi ang logistic eh. Okay. Pag exponential growth, something like that.
Yes.
Pag exponential decay, something like this. Pag logistic is something like, ano ba ito? Inverse J, okay? Okay. Do you have, can you think of some example?
Mas ano siya dyan?
I forgot my logistic regression because it's been 2003.
Okay. Okay, ito. Example lang ng mga phenomena.
More than
which-
15 years.
Yes.
Okay, which behave in logistic way. Halimbawa yung height natin. Okay, so there's a time na meron tayong growth spurts eh, di ba? But time on, mag-ano na siya,
Taper
mag-curve
off.
down,
Yes.
mag-taper na and it will stabilize. And growth of trees. Growth of trees, growth of plants, yung kanyang vertical height. Okay, and then ito pa, sinusoidal regression. Okay, this is something that actually, ngayon ko lang, although I have an idea at the back of my mind, meron ito sigurado. Pero ngayon ko lang siya nakita yung pangalan eh. When I'm preparing for this ating program.
I think
Sinusoidal.
pinapangalanan yan dun sa mga nag-formulate ng formula.
No, ang sinusoidal,
what's
it is
that?
something to do with the sine function.
Yun sign. Okay.
So example nito, halimbawa ang pinag-aaralan mong variable is follow the seasons. Halimbawa pag summer season, kaunti. And then pag rainy season, madami. And then pag nabalik na ulit ng summer season, kaunti na naman. Pag
Okay.
dami. So that would be a
Seasonal.
variable or an event that might need a sinusoidal regression analysis.
Yes.
Okay. So if I may add,
Yes.
okay, I am quoting from some social scientists, ano? Kasi sa social science, bihira tayo makakita ng mga perfect correlation. Pero ito, I'm quoting from some renowned clinical psychologist, si Jordan Peterson, baka kilala niyo yun, favorite ko yun. 0.26, yung value ng, absolute value ng R na 0.26 ay significant, not significant, but that's something to look into.
0.26.
Sa social science. So when you say social science, nariyan na yung consumer behavior. Okay, that's a big social science thing. Okay. Ay ba tayo? Kasi continuous random variables dyan eh. Okay?
Continuous.
Ganito naman. One variable ay binary data.
Binary
okay?
data.
And then the other variable is a continuous random data. Okay,
Yes.
bigay ka ng example niya.
An example would be, let's say, gender and
Okay.
consumption. How will there might be reason enough to believe that gender may affect consumption of something. So technically, we are taught that gender is either male or female, and it's a categorical variable,
Okay.
0
Okay.
or 1.
Yeah.
So you code it accordingly, 0 to 1. It doesn't mean that males are inferior or females are inferior. It just happened that you used 0 and 1 to code the data. So 0 and 1 will be the ones to be used for coding. And then you can run a regression against the gender, against the consumption, and then try to find out if there is indeed relationship.
Slight correction lang. That is sex, not gender.
Yes.
Male, female,
Male, female,
sex.
yes.
Okay.
Men, women,
Or civil,
gender.
civil status as well could be used. Let's say together with gender, civil status, years of education, and then influencing income or let's say consumption. Yes.
So, yung ganyang klaseng correlation is a very popular among sa schools kasi they want to see yung correlation between the sex of students and performance, let's say for example in examinations. Okay? Now, another kind of a correlation analysis. Ito, categorical data pero hindi lang to tipong 1-0 lang eh. Okay? And another vis-a-vis another data which is a continuous variable. Ano? Example, tatlong grupo ng kabataan. We are interested to know gaano kahaba ang kanilang pag-uusap. Depende sa pag-uusapan. Okay, so yun, categorical data na yun. Sa isa, ang pag-uusapan politics. Sa kabila, show business. Sa kabila, basketball. And then sa kabila siguro, kabastusan. Okay, so uurasan natin sila kung sino ang pinakamahabang length of conversation. Okay, again, that's amenable to correlation analysis, di ba?
That depends on the nature of the variables. As long as you can translate it quantitatively and then test for significance at the very end, yes.
Okay. So again, ang output nito, katulad ng ating pinag-usapan kanina, is to produce that number, yun?
Okay. Well, aside from, okay, so you have the correlation coefficient, which is going to be used for two variables. But when you run a regression, you can have several independent variables. So what you will arrive at is an R squared, which is the coefficient of determination.
Coefficient determination.
Yeah. So the R squared actually explains how much of the dependent variable is explained by your choice of independent variables in your study.
Okay.
So the R squared, well, if you're dealing with two variables, that's simply just the square of the correlation coefficient. For example, 0.9, if you get a correlation coefficient of 0.9, if you have two sets of variables, when you get the square of that, so R is 0.9, multiply it by itself, you get R squared of 81. 0.81 rather. So that means that 81% of the variation in Y is explained by X. The remaining 19% are explained by other variables not captured in your study. So if you are a thesis writer or a research student, you can say that, for future research, I have to investigate what is this remaining 19% that is not accounted for in my study or in my research.
But Tropang Florence, are we still expecting your guest?
On the way pa raw siya, so siguro.
Okay, anyway.
Okay, let's continue. Actually,
May question lang ako.
Okay, go ahead.
Medyo naririnig ko kasi yung tinatawag na marginal error or margin of error na.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So, ilan ba talaga ang acceptable na margin of error? Kasi meron nagsasabi, sige, 0.5, tama? If I'm wrong? O
0.05,
0.05.
which is a 5%
Yes,
margin of
5%.
error.
So meron nagsasabi, okay lang naman ang 10%.
Yes.
So, kailan ba okay ang 5?
Okay. Kailan okay ang 10? Okay. We usually discuss margin of error when you are trying to create a confidence interval.
Yes.
Because you're trying to estimate the value of, let's say, a mean or a proportion. You have what you call the upper limit and the lower limit. So so if you are if you want to be 95% sure that the true value of that particular mean falls in that range, that's why you have what you call a margin of error. We also use margin of errors if you are conducting a survey. What do you call this? There is an inverse relationship po kasi sa sample size and the margin of error. So if you are trying to field out surveys, the higher the margin of error, the lower the sample size, and vice versa. right? So remember that in reality, you cannot survey the whole population.
Correct. So what do you use? Sloven's formula ba?
The common one is Sloven's formula, but there are more sophisticated
mas bago.
sampling
Technique.
formulas or sampling
You know what?
techniques. But the common ones used in most undergraduate classes
Sloven.
is the Sloven's formula. But there are more sophisticated ones because it's the
Easiest.
well, aside from easy, it's more convenient to understand, most especially for senior high school students or for beginning statistics students.
Dr. Halcon, this is something controversial which I would like to ask.
Oh my.
Kasi, I think you may have seen, and I think some of you have seen.
Yes.
Yung isang mga comment ng isang senatorial candidate na
Oh my.
the person was saying na how can SWSS and even Pulse Asia come up with this lineup or na winners na top 12 na yung sample size lang daw is only 1,800 to represent the whole Philippines. So, since you also talked about margins of error, what would be the acceptable sample to represent the whole electorate of the Philippines?
Oh, that's a tough one.
So I think it's also valid when it was also valid when the person said mas mataas yung margin of error nung 1,800 lang to represent the whole electorate of the Philippines. As you have said, the lower the population is, the lower the sample size is, the higher margin of error would be.
There is an inverse relationship between that one. So if I were, well, I don't want to, what do you call this? Put anything in a bad light. But if I were given the opportunity to do the study, and I had resources and time at my disposal, maybe I would divide it into certain regions of the Philippines, and then I will conduct a survey for each region, then tabulate perhaps the results and see who are the leaders in that particular region, and then to come up with the overall feel of the Philippines. Maybe I will make use of proportional allocation. Whichever region has the most number of registered voters, that will carry a bigger weight in my aggregate result.
Okay.
So, and then the smaller the voting population in that particular region, it will carry a smaller weight in the overall or aggregate result of my survey.
What is the acceptable sample size in percentage?
In percentage? Oh. Well, when you have a sample size, it's usually a whole number. It's not...
Depending...
it's something like this. Even now, I cannot... there's nothing from my education in stat that right away you can tell. Depende kasi sa size ng population. And we have to look pa ito actually anong size ng voting population.
Yes, that's true. There are so many factors that may influence the choice of methodology actually.
Meron din tayong tinatawag na purposive sampling.
Sampling.
That's right.
Ibig sabihin nun, hindi ka nagagamit talaga ng anumang formula.
Or yung parang stratified way or very
left to chance.
It's something like this kasi syempre getting a survey is work. I mean, it costs money.
Correct.
That's true.
I mean, doing it the way Dr. Halcon says, it will involve time, money. At kapag minsan ang mga organizations does not have that. Pero mahalaga kasi, syempre na hindi naman ginagawa ng mga survey, hindi nila pinapaliwanag ko, saan mo kinuha yung sample mo. Okay. Hindi naman sila sinasabi. Pero I think it's part of the obligation. Supposedly dapat na okay, you're free naman to do your how you sample it, but you must transparency. Ano yung sampling? Paano mo ginawa yung sample? Paano kinuha?
And I think there are methodological limitations to any research undertaking, right? So
that's right.
There are what you call measurement errors, technical errors, human error. So you have to consider those things as well in crafting a particular study.
Sir, yung tinatawag natin validity, no, validity. Ano ang relation niyan sa Cronbach Alpha? Alpha ba tama?
Yes, yes. You have validity and reliability
Okay.
of your. If I remember correctly, you run a Cronbach Alpha most especially if you have a self-made instrument or survey instrument.
Okay.
The standard practice, if the Cronbach Alpha is greater than 0.7,
Oh, I see.
your research is, I mean, your research instrument rather is rather good to go.
Mga 70% okay na yan.
Yes, yes. 0.7. So the Cronbach Alpha is one of the commonly used ones in social sciences to, what do you call this, to check if you have a survey that is good for administration.
How many times na kailangan ka mag-Cronbach Alpha?
Okay. There will be instances that it is low or borderline.
Yeah.
So what you do, you conduct a pilot test first. Dahil kasi nga paminsan may mga nag-answer na survey na hindi marunong magsunod ng direction. Sabi mo, pick one, chinek lahat. So that's bad survey already. So you have to check if your instructions are clear to the respondents. And then you go ahead and edit, or maybe you have to rephrase a certain question.
Okay.
Or revise even the layout. Actually, the layout of your survey also counts. Make sure that it is visually appealing, it's easy for someone to answer, because let's face it, some people don't really take surveys seriously. They
Correct.
just answer it for the sake of it. But if you are a researcher, each survey counts. Dahil kasi you have a minimum target to hit. What do you call this? You have to get a certain number of respondents. So, and it's also costly nowadays to
I
run
think
surveys.
that's one of the things that researchers should do. Na yung survey nila is not too long because it sometimes bores
That's true.
yung mga respondents.
Yes,
because
that's true.
there was one time I was asked by an undergrad to answer a survey sa HR to. This was more than 10 years ago, and this was the thesis of that HR student. Now, when she asked me to fill out this survey form, pagkataas-taas, I think that was maybe about 10 pages. Oh, wow. Ano ba to? So,
okay.
I think that's
Yes.
also it. We have
Yes.
to be mindful of our respondents
Yes.
as well. Kasi yung sa questions pa lang na, let's say, introductory part na name, sex, civil status, income, ganun.
Yes.
That's already going to take some time because
That's true.
that's also needed so that you will be able to know kung ano yung respondents, ano yung picture ng mga respondents mo.
That's true.
Eric,
Yes, sir.
what software ba? Nagbibigay ka ba ng seminar on how to use the software for staff?
I do, but I'm only very much familiar with SPSS and what do you call this? Microsoft Excel, since these are the ones that are commonly available. There are some more sophisticated softwares that, let's say, Stata, which I studied, but I never really got into the nitty-gritties of things because it requires some form of programming language. So, yes, I do give seminars on basic
Ano yung
statistics.
significant? May ba significant difference yung SPSS sa Excel halimbawa?
And Excel. Well, the Excel is commonly available. As long as you have Microsoft
Yes.
Windows, you're fine. Microsoft Office, you're fine. But the limitation of Excel is that if you do not know the formula or the command, you're you're dead meat. But if you have SPSS, you can play around with it actually. So it's Windows based. It's drop down. It has drop down menus, so you can just click on and then explore, and then actually, after several tries, you can tutor yourself or teach yourself the different functions of SPSS actually.
Ako naman personally, the reason why I'm quite discouraged to learn a new thing, kasi yung pag mag-aaral ka ng bago, meron yung learning curve.
Yes, that's true.
Magsisimula ka sa bababa, and pag gagamitin mo yon at you are just beginning a learning curve, baka mali ang iyong output.
That's true.
Mali ang output, mali ang interpretation, which is why, as sad to say, and sometimes I'm embarrassed to admit it, kung ano yung alam ko, yung kumbaga, that's where I dig my foxhole. Yun ang talagang gagamitin ko. Okay, so that's it. Teacher, do you have something to add?
Yeah, nothing much except that I would just like to greet again the officers of Escudo Lodge number 371, yung worshipful master namin, si Brother Kenneth John Gregorio, Senior Warden, Ray Arvin Serrano, Junior Warden, si Jean Paulo Guadalupe. We are the members of School Lodge number 371. Thanks to Kuyang Luke Gicane, of Fine Craftsmen, and also to all of our classmates sa PJC High School, which celebrated their founding anniversary yesterday.
How about you, teacher? Do you have some people to greet?
Yes, I would like to greet everyone at Centro Escolar Las Piñas. We will be having our open house this coming March 9. So our campus is open. Come and visit our beautiful school. Yeah.
By the way, nga pala, we talk about it kanina as chat. Tinatanong nila, is Centro Escolar Las Piñas related to Central Escolar University?
Yes.
So it's good to know.
Yes. What do you call this? A few years back, Central Escolar University purchased Las Piñas College. So in Pilar Village. So right now we just opened our college program this June. So this coming school year, we'll be having the first year and second year already. So that's why we'll be having the open house this coming
Ano mga
March.
courses ang offered sa?
Okay, so right now I'm the program head of the accountancy, business administration, entrepreneurship, and hospitality management programs of Centro Escolar Las Piñas. We also have BS Psychology, we have dentistry, Doctor of Dental Medicine, we also have computer science over there. So we're the latest addition to the Las Piñas community.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Estimatedly, mga ilan ang population ng estudyante sa Central
if I'm not
Escolar?
mistaken, the basic education, that's kinder to grade 12.
So ito pala ay may kinder
Yes,
hanggang
we have
college.
grade from
Okay.
kinder to grade 12. I think there are 700, and then we're for the college. Since we just opened this June, we're 100 strong in the college department.
Teacher Florence, do you have
Of course, binabati natin mga katropang mga nanonood sa
Okay.
atin. And of course, tingin ko sobrang daming natutunan ng mga viewers sa segment natin ngayon.
Yes.
Okay.
So, sana may mga susunod pang katulad ng ganito.
We were supposed only for 20 minutes, no? But it turns out na I think we can talk for 1 hour,
Yes.
more than 1 hour, no? Sa dami ng topics sa
I would
statistics.
also like to thank and greet the Asian Psychological Services and Assessment. Nakikinig yung one of the officers of the APSA, si Ma'am Adelaida De Perio. She's watching right now. So ma'am, thank you very much for the support. And also we would like to thank the AFP. We would like to thank the MCAG, si Major Alvin Maneja, si Captain Aladin Almendras, and also si Sergeant Jeffrey Malimban. Thank you for all of the support to the Voice of the Teachers.
And
Sir
thank
Paul.
you na rin. Okay, thank you to my 2 publishers. Maraming salamat ha. Although kayo ay, yung isa dyan ay late na eh. Pero that's fine. That's fine with me. No? So I would like to thank and greet my publisher, Jim Civil Publications. Based sila sa Malabon, Metro Manila. And Unlimited Library Services and Publishing Company. They are based naman sa Intramuros.
That's it for this afternoon, and we are the Voice of the Teachers.
Ito ang DWW 1134 kHz